Yeah. So it always comes back to mindset. I feel like we could talk about mindset forever. And a few weeks ago we talked about mindset a lot. We had an episode, it's probably over a month ago now, but it was change your mindset to change your life. And we got into the idea that people aren't able to achieve their goals because they haven't kind of yet become the person who's capable of achieving their goals. But we didn't really get into how you cross that bridge, how you actually go through the process of becoming that person. So I wanted to get into that today because there's like a paradox there, because also like people aren't capable of achieving their goals, but at the same time, they're infinitely capable of anything.
Yes.
Which might sound confusing, but it's sort of the idea of getting out of your own way and getting your mind kind of wrapped around the idea that you are capable of things.
Yeah, and I think that it's challenging even for me to visualize my highest potential. It's becoming easier and easier as we grow and learn and investigate how the universe operates. Now, we do not have all the answers. I don't think we're supposed
to. From it.
Yeah, and I don't think we're supposed to have all the answers because we're co-creating life. And I think that that's been the biggest eye-opener. It's really understanding that life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And anything that's come up that's been great or a challenge, either way it is. And I have to embrace that, knowing that the great things are making me greater, but the tough, crappy things are also making me greater because I'm tapping into my higher self, the potentiality of the infinite being that I am, and I'm calling to me new experiences purposely. But it's been a bit of a shakeup because I'm very comfortable in our little life and the little bubble that we've got going on with work and job and friends and our little family and how we cook and all these things. I think where you're going when people stay in that mind frame, like I'm just envisioning how life is at this very moment. You know, we wake up in the same house, we go to the same job, we walk our dog, everything's the same because we visualize it the way we know it.
Yeah.
It's that's the simplest way I can put it for people to grasp. You know, you visualize the life that you live because you're in it, living it right now. So if you're living in the house that you're living in and you go to the same job, like that's your life. You're almost not even visualizing it. It's second nature. It's unconsciously doing the things that you've already done.
Yeah.
But to your point, if you want to become a different version of that maybe lives in a different house, that maybe weighs or looks a certain way, or you have a different job, you have to visualize yourself having those things before having them. And that's really challenging. So it's how do we get to that point? Because our ego and our smaller self has protected us so much from the unknown, the unfamiliar, because it wants to keep us safe and comfortable because that's what we know and that's what we recognize.
Yeah, so we end up just keep repeating
the
same thing over and over. If you kind of step back and think about it, like all the things, just like you're saying, all the things in our life seem like they're right now, but they're actually almost like a projection of the past.
Yes.
Because it's like the things you have in your life now are a sum of your experiences and the things that you've done and learned and who you've become. So what seems like right now is actually a projection of your past, is a projection of what you were. And that's why I was saying, like, if you have a goal that is different than your right now, you can't keep doing the things that got you right now. And you also can't be hypnotized by the things around you to the point where you keep repeating. Whereas like, is also like, if you're trying to, lose weight or look a different way, or you're trying to, accomplish any kind of goal, if you're just looking around at what's in your life and assuming that's all there is, you're never going to be able to expand beyond that. You're just going to keep on reinforcing what you already have.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? I think that's where you have to go with this.
Yes. Easier said than done.
Of course.
But it's really kind of cool when you can grasp that, like, oh, wait a minute, I can create a different version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where people where a lot of mental illness comes from, right? You're stuck, you're depressed, you have anxiety, you're stressed out because you only know one version of yourself.
Yeah.
And again, easier said than done, but it's tapping into the possibility of change. It's really embracing change and wanting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
So how do we do it?
Exactly.
And we're learning very much as this unfolds. So we're kind of giving our 2 cents and our experience as it's, because a lot has changed over the past, 6 months, year, 2 years since I'm an exponentially different person than I was a week ago. Never mind 6 months ago. And it may not seem that way to the people on the outside looking in, because I look the same. I live in the same, home. I walk the same dog. I have the same partner, but a lot internally.
Yeah. Things feel different. Your experience.
My experience
with all
of life
same things is different.
Is much different. And I'm seeing things unfold much differently now. It's like, okay, wait a minute, because everything is energy, right? And matter. And it can be manipulated and changed through your perception.
Yeah. Through consciousness and vibration.
But even the phrase that I just said is something that I've learned, something that we've learned over the past 2 years, right? We didn't understand that. So how did we get to this point? So let's dive deep into that.
That's one of those things, like, you hear it and it's like, okay, like that kind of makes sense. But also, like, if you don't feel it and like know it deep down, then you don't know it. It's just sort of an idea that's bouncing around. So I think a lot of this stuff, like, if you've never heard this way of looking at the world, it's gonna seem crazy and far-fetched, and even just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
So I'd say first, like, listen with an open mind here and just kind of contemplate that these things might be possible, because I used to be the exact same way. And I feel like as my perception has shifted, like exactly what you're saying, like my whole life has shifted and changed dramatically. So when we say like that everything around you is the sum of what you've done in the past, a lot of that, 99% of it is subconscious. And that's the stuff that we want to get into. That's the mindset stuff where you might really want to achieve a goal consciously and intellectually understand what it takes to do that. But if you don't believe you're capable of it, if you don't believe that it's even like a feasible thing, and you have you've put all these limitations on yourself subconsciously, you're never going to allow yourself to pursue that dream fully. And your subconscious and your ego are going to hold you back. In the other episode where we talked about this stuff, I talked a lot about like my own like self-sabotage and how I hold myself back. And that's why I want to get into like a little more detail into like how that happens.
Yeah.
Because we do kind of program. Like as humans, we program ourselves and the way we see the world as little children, like from like in the uterus through the first like 7, depending on who you talk to, like 7 to 14 years of your life.
Yeah. We
automatically like download everything.
Yeah. Our brains are like a sponge.
Yeah. Like
even though we can't communicate, especially within the first couple years, it doesn't matter. Our eyes are perceiving everything. Yeah. And your eyes do not need words to formulate the subconscious mind that we develop.
Yeah. So during that 7 years.
And this is all, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to preface to people that this is, if you're like, what are you guys talking about? We need more information on this. Go look at Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. The majority of what we're talking about right now is we learned it from Dr. Bruce Lipton. He is the one who kind of pioneered the epigenetics. Yeah. And I mean, he's fascinating. We've dive deep into all of his works and his podcasts, but it's kind of a newer phenomenon that's being discovered, right? The more and more we're evolving, the more and more science is evolving, and it's like finally catching up and understanding like the human mechanisms in the brain. So this isn't like a fad. This is scientifically proven, and research has been done on this, how our brains and subconscious develop, like you said, in utero, he says, for the first 7 years of our lives.
Yeah. And so like during that time, like software, kind of like you think of a computer, we're downloading our operating system, and we have these like maps of what we think the world is. Subconsciously, for the rest of our life, we're going to play out these patterns, and we're going to search for things that reinforce them, because the ego and the brain like doesn't want to be wrong. So we're going to constantly seek out things that make us feel right, whether that's what we want or not. So even like the simplest example is like you're overweight, want to lose 20 pounds, but your subconscious programming is telling you that you can't do that, that like being overweight runs in your family, or diseases run in your family, that like whatever it is that you're going to be safer if you keep on seeking out more and more of the same. So that's how you end up with like comfort foods and things, just like self-loathing and trauma bonding, and finding other people that also don't want to go to the gym. So you can sit around and talk about how hard it would be to go to the gym and lose this weight, or how like, oh, this never works for me. That's another one. It's like, oh, I tried that diet. I tried all these diets. I tried this exercise program. Nothing works for me. Because on some level, every time you try these things, you're sabotaging them, doing something that holds you back. And then you're getting a reward in your brain for reinforcing
it not
the
working
beliefs.
out.
Yeah. So this is what we mean by changing your mindset to change your life. And it takes work.
Yes.
I love to say like the only limitations are the limitations we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is 100% true. I couldn't believe it anymore. I think that every one of us is like infinitely capable to do anything that we want.
Yeah.
But I think that in order to do that, we need to stop limiting ourselves and get out of our own way. So
yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I guess from our experience, I can at least tell people how it came about and how we did it, because it's basically reprogramming your mind.
Yes.
And I believe it started with when we joined the To Be Magnetic company, because I do need to shout out to Lacey and like what she does, because it really transformed our lives. So we have to reprogram our mind. It's literally, you have to change the neuroplasticity of your mind to reprogram. And again, I'm getting very technical here. But it's scientifically proven that your brain cannot tell the difference between something that happened or hasn't happened.
Yeah, something you think about versus something that you do physically.
Yes, exactly. Or if something happened a certain way and it was really traumatic, you are able to go subconsciously and reprogram that in the depths of it. And again, that is what takes work. But through the To Be Magnetic community. So this is it's basically an online classroom.
Yeah.
It's a monthly subscription. Dan and I had listened to this woman named Lacey on a podcast. We found her, and she was talking about retraining your mind, subconsciously doing inner child work and shadow work. And it was like, okay, this is coming up. It's synchronicities that began coming up for the both of us where we needed to tap into. It's basically journal prompts and what she calls deep imaginings, DIs, which are kind of hypnosis and meditation all in one. And they're guided meditations where she's talking you through experiences of your own. Again, it's going to be for each individual person, but you listen to them on your own. And then there's journal prompts and everything. But it was so transformative because when you're listening to these guided meditations, they're bringing up programs from your past and some that are currently running right now. And you're able to get that mental download of, oh, wait a minute, this memory or this traumatic instance is causing me the limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And that starts again from childhood. Things come up that I didn't even knew that were in my brain at that time. So I'm probably not speaking as eloquently as I can about it, but if you can help me out here.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. So it's like, it's going into your, kind of getting into the subconscious a little bit through prompts and bringing up different concepts. And it's interesting because it's all in there. So we have like sort of what we're running our conscious mind day to day. And then the subconscious is it remembers everything. Everything that's ever happened in your life is stored somewhere.
Yep.
And you're able to access it. But it can be really, really challenging to access. But through some of the like sort of like more hypnosis and relaxing, getting into like relaxing states through meditation. And then when it's prompt to like, oh, well, why do you think this? And then all of a sudden a memory will come up.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It'll be something that happened when you were, 7, 8 years old. And it's like, well, I haven't thought about that in 30 years, but it's like, it's running my life because now I'm afraid because maybe, you got up to speak in front of the class in like 3rd grade and you said something wrong and everybody laughed at you. And ever since, you've been afraid to like kind of speak your truth and to be yourself. And so you find patterns and you find these memories, and you can either like go through and literally just retell that story to yourself in a way where you stood up and said all the right things and everybody clapped and loved you. And like you were saying before, if you do that right, it's just as real in your mind as the actual memory that happened. And this is another thing I'm sure a lot of people are like, no, that's nonsense because that's not what happened. And it's like, it can be an interesting thing to wrap your head around, but the past isn't real. Yeah. It's just thoughts and memories and ideas. And like, there's a reason that eyewitness testimonies aren't held with that high of regard, because people just kind of piece things together. You piece things together. Something will happen, and then something else will happen, and we'll make up that, oh, well, the second thing happened because of the first. Like, we put things in order that don't necessarily make sense. We piece things together in a way that makes sense for us, so that we have some sort of feeling of safety and closure. Yeah. But it's not really true. Everybody has a different perspective of everything that's ever happened. Yeah. So it's not like cheating or lying or living in make-believe to go through and fix these memories so that it's not running your life, because it's even crazier to be 35 years old and afraid to take steps in your life because of something that happened when you were in 3rd grade. Right. That's the crazy thing. Yes. But that's what we're all doing. And that we have all these different examples of, you heard your parents fighting about something, and now you're afraid to mention, your emotions in front of somebody, or you don't want to talk about money, or whatever the thing is. Like, things, we inherit tension and we inherit stress. And we inherit these programs, these subconscious programs, and then we ignore them. And we go our entire lives not even noticing that that's the reason that we're struggling. That's the reason we can't reach our goals, is because we inherited some story, or we created a program around some story from our past. Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to preface that the past is the past. It's really hard to like wrap your head around like the concept of that. Now, there is trauma that comes in all shapes and sizes. It can be as simple as, I shouldn't say simple, but as, traumatic as like not receiving a hug from your family. Or it can be insane trauma where you were sexually abused. Now that is a whole, neither of us have dealt with that type of trauma. So we need to preface that and say, like, if you are that type of person who's gone through extreme trauma, it's going to be very difficult for you to reprogram that. And I mean, that's where you need to seek professional help. And even through the online courses and the things that the 2B magnetic community says, like,
that is specific. You need professional help with that. We're speaking from our instances in the degrees of trauma that we received throughout our childhood. And like, this is how we're reprogramming 30 years of our lives. It's just our experience of it. They're trauma different in every person. I just want to make sure that people
I think that that's a really important thing to emphasize, but also, you know, if you weren't sexually abused, if you weren't physically abused, that doesn't mean you need to belittle your own trauma.
Yes.
Because it's all relative. It's, you know, the trauma of being 2 years old and not being hugged.
Yeah.
At that time that's a life or death thing. It's you need love and physical attention.
Yes.
That you weren't getting. That is as traumatizing a thing as that, you know, 2-year-old version of yourself could possibly imagine.
Absolutely.
So that is also very, very real. As real as anything could be. It's also something that you can reprogram and overcome by changing the stories and the narrative that's running and controlling your life. Like Carl Jung said, the subconscious, or like what we keep in the shadows, will run our lives. Until I need to get this quote right. Until we bring light to the things that are in the shadows, or until we make the unconscious conscious, that's what it is. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will run our lives and we will call it fate.
Yes. There you go.
That's what, I knew it was in there somewhere. That's what we're talking about, is that just bringing awareness and recognizing that these things exist and that these programs and patterns exist, recognizing that we are limiting ourselves based on stories is sometimes enough. Just to shine light on these things, just to bring some awareness to it and to recognize, oh, I'm not 5 years old anymore. I'm a man. I can handle it now.
Yes.
And it can completely just change your perspective of everything.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong too, right? And this is one of the things that I think really helped me was, because again, my ego wanted to blame everybody. My ego wanted to blame everybody else, whether it be my family, my friends, my teachers, my coworkers, you know, the camp friends that I had, the people I played sports with. I mean, the media, like, and my ego wanted to place blame, like point my finger. Well, it's not my fault. No. Again, that's your ego trying to keep you safe. But recognizing that the reasons why I am the way that I am, and that I developed all these programs and agreements and experiences, had nothing to do with me either. Everybody else was living their lives the way that they had been programmed. So yes, someone might have called me fat, or I might have gotten yelled at by a softball coach when I made an error or something like that. And it was more about them than me. But I just took it on thinking that it was my fault.
Yeah.
So this is the dismantling of who I thought I was to become the unlimited potential and the perfection that I am.
Yes. That's a really, really good way of putting it. And that's really what this is. And there's different ways of going about it. So we did mention like some of the more leaning toward like meditation and hypnosis. Another great tool for this is journaling.
Yes. Yeah, the journaling that came with to being magnetic, like the programs, and it blew my mind, because I was never someone who liked to write. Again, this was a program that I had told. I never did good in high school. I never did great. I did all right in college, but like high school, I had always pegged myself as just not smart. And again, that was because just a story. I didn't get great grades. I wasn't in any AP classes. I also just didn't give a shit about the subjects that I was learning. Like I can't stop writing and I can't stop reading today because I'm reading the things I want to read. And I said, so yeah. But the journaling prompts, I mean, when I tell you, like, I couldn't even keep up. My hand couldn't even keep up
cramping
with the thoughts. And it is different. I never really fully grasped like how journaling could help, because it's like, well, maybe if I just like say it, or if it's like in my mind, like
Yeah.
But it's different when you put pen to paper. And for me, it was like very old school pen to paper. You can type on a computer or laptop or iPad, whatever. But I was writing it. And it was a release. It's really an emotional release. Yeah. And after every time I write, they do suggest, and I'm saying they, like people who are journaling experts, and they say to read it out loud to yourself too. And that's where it got me. Because it's also, when you're putting it down on paper, it's like, oh shit, this is real. Like, this happened to me. Then when you read it out loud, I never read it to you or read it to anyone. I would always do this when I was alone, but the tears, like when I talk about a second emotional release, it just felt like weight lifting off my shoulder, and I can feel it, right? Like I said before at the beginning, we're energetic beings. That energy is stored within us. So it was needing to come to the surface. It was needing to release. And the journal prompts help you so much. I mean, you can find these. You don't need to be a part of the TB Magnetic community. You can find them on Google, Pinterest. Like you can you can go to YouTube and find them. You can find them on Instagram.
Yeah. And just simply like asking yourself a question and then writing down the answer. And you know, why do I feel this way? What am I afraid of? And just start telling stories, and you'll notice, like you can go through and like write down a story about what happened, and then like stop and read it and be like, that's not, like, who cares? Like, and these things that have just like been either on our mind constantly, like bouncing around, and like something we constantly think about, but once you get it out of your head and get it onto paper, it really changes your relationship with the story in a sense that you can kind of separate yourself from it. And then it's there. Then it's just a thing that you can read objectively and be like, oh, that's not that big a deal. And that it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
I really struggled with like self-worth.
I was just going to say, we need to bring self-worth into this. Yeah.
This is huge. And I think this is, for me, has been by far the biggest thing. Just didn't like myself for a really, really long time. And I also like didn't know that I didn't like myself, if that makes sense. Like, and that's what I'm talking about, like the subconscious element to this.
I definitely identify with
like
that.
If you had asked me like, hey, like, do you like yourself? I would have, of course I like myself. I'm my favorite person. But if I like look at the way I was treating myself, if you look at the thoughts I had, the way I judged myself, and the weight I put on like my own mistakes and shortcomings, you would never talk about somebody you like in that sense.
No.
And that was a big, like for me, like some of my journaling was literally just talking shit to myself and just like, you are such a piece of shit, like you can't do anything right, and I would just list off all these things that I would mess up.
Oh my god, you're gonna make me cry.
And I would be so hard on myself. But then I could like sit back and read it. First, it just felt good to like get that out, because it was like this like pent up
energy,
like rage and energy of like negativity toward myself that was clearly blocking me from doing anything good for myself. But as I was able to release that and write it down, just in writing it, first was like that almost like weight off your shoulders, like some of the claustrophobic, like suffocating, was just released immediately from writing it. But then at the next level, I'm able to go back through and read that and just be like, who is that?
Yeah.
Because that's not me. That's not the way you talk about somebody you love. So like, what part of me? So it's like, okay, like my ego and like the inner judge is being so hard on myself. Why? Okay, like that's something that he learned at a young age. Subconsciously, if you mess up, you're going to get yelled at. So I'm going to yell at you so you don't mess up.
Yes.
And then I would create just this negative cycle where it became, I was just petrified of expressing myself. Because, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before on the show, but I would constantly just be like, you're a piece of shit, don't do that. Why? Like, don't call attention to yourself.
You wouldn't even try.
Yeah. It's like, don't dress nice because people are going to think you're trying to look good. don't comb your hair, don't grow your hair. Like from the time I was 15 until 24, I buzzed my hair.
Yes.
Because if I didn't, and I felt so awkward that if I let my hair grow and then combed it, it's like, what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to be right now? Like, you look good all of a sudden? Like, get out of here. And that's like the way I treated myself was like, just shave your head, and then nobody can say that you're trying. Mm-hmm. Just I would wear like gray t-shirts inside out. Like no logo, no nothing, just like the plainest loose fitting shirt. Because if I put on I got to a point where like I put on a collared shirt, people are like, what, you're like dressing nice for school? Loser, like get out of here. Like, and I just like kept on putting more and more limitations on myself, so that I felt like I had nothing that I could do. Mm. And that was sort of like just the way I went about life, was like, put your head down, don't get noticed, because if somebody notices you, they're going to notice what you're doing wrong. It took some work, and through the journal, and actually, so going through like to be magnetic, shadow work was one of the first times that I really started like taking a look at this, and it wouldn't work. I went through that program 3 times, and I wasn't really able to get past it because it was so repressed. Where some of these things were so deep, they'd be like, okay, like I'd be like in this like hypnotized state, going through a meditation, and it's asking questions, and I was just getting nothing. Yeah, just crickets. And I'm like, well, there's something there. And I've been able to like kind of since then, like just through a lot of journaling and meditation and exposing myself to different ideas and learning to see the world differently, I have been able to do it. And I have like doing it, like growing my hair is an example of me like kind of stepping outside of my comfort. Yeah. Where now it's who I am, and it doesn't or who I am isn't really the right way to say it, but I'm very comfortable. Yeah. Having my hair like this, and I do feel like it is a better expression of my being than like having my head shaved. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can see it and feel it. Yeah. But yeah, like growing it out it was really weird, and this is the second time I did it, and it's like the first time. I feel like I'm talking so like no, this is another so this is another story, like sort of the end of my last year of college and like the first year out of college. It was the first time I came to the realization that like I need to grow my hair out so that I can get over not being able to comb my hair and have hair. And I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna stop worrying what anybody thinks. I'm just gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna look goofy for a while. It's gonna be awkward, and then it's gonna grow out. And it worked partially. It helped, and it helped, and it helped. And then one day I saw a picture of myself, and I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? And I got so mad at myself that I impulsively went to a barber, cut off the hair after almost 2 years, and then like almost immediately regretted it and like wished that I hadn't cut it off. I remember because you didn't tell me you were going to cut it. You were away, right? No, I think it was it was a holiday, and I had gotten back to our apartment in Boston. We had separated like to be with our individual families, and I had gotten to our apartment first, and you like walked through the door like a couple hours later, and your hair was I was like, what did you do? Yep. Yeah, that was I literally just impulsively, I saw this picture, and I looked like I judged myself in a way that like, I don't know, like you'd think like some old man who like, get off my lawn, kind of like, oh, who's this like hippie with the long hair, like cut your hair and get a job. Yeah. And that was it. I was afraid that I wasn't like, I had just graduated college. I was having trouble finding a job. I was afraid that people weren't taking me seriously because I didn't look like I was supposed to look. Yeah. I get it. So I cut it all off, and now that's not the right. Looking like I'm supposed to look thing has like never crossed my mind. Yeah. This is kind of probably shift gears just a little bit. I just want to give a perspective because I want people to know that the way that you're talking about yourself and how you viewed yourself, I didn't know this. So for couples who are listening to this, family members who are listening to this, like I'm not talking about our family, like just in general. That's a good point. I want that's the internal talk that we're talking about. I was never openly sharing this or even talking about myself, besides like making little jokes and a lot like, which is the same thing, like, but
Yeah.
being like either like sarcastic or like I would constantly joke about how I did things wrong.
Yeah.
But it was, oh, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so I want to shed light on that too. So it's like, again, people who are struggling with mental illness, this is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Your internal talk is so self-sabotage and debilitating. In like, luckily you were able to turn it around, but some people aren't. So that's my point. Like it's like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this? How did I not see it? It's because I was dealing with my own shit.
Of course,
so you know what I mean? So it's like family dynamics and friend dynamics. Like thinking about like what my friends are actually thinking about, I don't really know. Do you know what I mean? Like when we go to dinner parties, when we go out, everything is like usually hunky-dory. Like very little do we get these deep conversation. So it's like, this is what we want to do. This is why we started the podcast, because it's like, all right, like we're finally at this point where we can be vulnerable with each other and the world. Because if we're going through this, we know millions of people are going through it too. So it's like this, like we're trying to be the voice of reason for others. And I had no idea. Like you came off very confident, very, like I always say this, you're the smartest person I know. And I do believe that. And you are very capable. So like you masked so much of that. And again, it was just reinforcing your ego's identity to keep you safe. And it's so crazy to think like that's who you were 15 years ago. You're not that person now. Yeah. So it's like, and it's so beautiful that you've evolved and are continuing to evolve, right? It's like you're at this point and you're feeling great, but you're not throwing your hands up and like, okay, I'm happier, I'm done. It's like, no. I'm so much happier than I was. Like, think about how happy you're going to be in 5 or 10 years. Yeah. It's so exciting.
Yeah. It's like the journey is so rewarding because I can't wait to like see what I can accomplish and how happy I can be and how how much better it's going to keep getting, because like my life has improved so much. And it's like talking about all these things is like I literally, like, those thoughts don't cross my mind like very, very rarely.
Yeah.
And there's been a few times, and I can like pinpoint them and I catch them. Or I'll even just like you call me out sometime on like being like sarcastic or making jokes in these situations. I'll catch myself too, like I'll drop something. Oh, I dropped something. No, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Did right now.
Yeah. And it's not that like we can't have fun and joke around and like, yeah, of course. But deep down, like people who do what you're saying, like being sarcastic, it's like you're trying to make yourself feel okay with doing something wrong. And I can see it just because I'm aware, right? But like, not everyone's aware of these things, so that's
exactly. It's like a please don't judge me. I know I messed up, but it's funny. It's funny. We can all laugh at me.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to laugh at yourself to get you through this, earth school, the soul school that we're in right now. But there's only so much. I have to stop you because it wasn't serving you anymore.
Exactly.
So that's why it's like we play off of this.
I was just like, that's exactly what the point is. Like we have these either, behaviors, characteristics, patterns, agreements that we've made that maybe served us at one point. Like I got made fun of when I was young. So I did things to not get made fun of anymore.
Yeah, same. Of course. Yeah.
But then like I wasn't in 4th grade anymore. Then I was like a man and I was doing things to not be made fun of by like the kids in 3rd and 4th grade. So that's what I mean by like, we can look back, as serious as these things seemed to us when we installed the programming, we can just take a step back and laugh at them now and then stop letting those programs run our life.
Yeah.
Because we can, in the same way that we chose that then, we can choose a whole new way of seeing the world.
Yes, and that's what I meant by co-creating with the universe. Like once you stop yourself from the limiting beliefs, the fears, your unlimited potential. Like when those stories are not controlling your life anymore, it's like, ooh, okay, so I can rewrite this and I can create a different version of myself and a different life? And it's like, yeah, it just takes a little bit of time and we're still going through it, right? Like this did not happen overnight, and it's not happening overnight, right? There's still so much we want to accomplish, but it's like so much has changed in the past couple of years. It's like, this is so exciting. Yeah. And it kind of is beautifully unfolding too. We're also realizing that we have to relinquish some of the control and let the universe guide us as well.
Yeah.
Because control is a part of the ego, because the ego wants to keep you safe. So the more the ego can control you, the more it can stay safe.
Yeah.
And that's been a big part. Like I've controlled everything in my life. I've allowed people to control my life. And I wanted to do that for so long, to be hyper vigilant and hyper aware of what was going on so that I could control it to keep myself safe, because the unknown is scary as shit. And I'm realizing that the unknown is where I grow and where I learn and where I'm going to become the highest version of myself. So I feel like I've been relinquishing a lot of control.
Yes.
And that was a huge shadow aspect of mine that came up immediately in the To Be Magnetic, like the course on the shadow. And that was everyone who I asked, like, what's my defining quality? You're controlling. And I am. And I already knew that, though. That wasn't anything that I didn't know. But it's easier said than done to relinquish that. And it's hard to tell yourself you're not who you believe yourself to be.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do that. But if we're just planting the seed in your head. We're just planting that little seed, right? And then it's going to grow. Because now I really hope that people can ask more questions and dive deeper into what this means. Because this is what's true to us and how we're evolving and changing. And how it's been very beneficial, the journaling, the meditations, the deep imaginings, the work that we've done, the reading the epigenetics and just following all gurus and their experiences.
Just learning, different perspectives.
Just learning. It's
hearing
like
how different people explain the same things, life.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I can write my story. I can write it. Oh gosh, Peter Crone has the best saying. I'm gonna butcher this too, but it's like the past is in the past. It happened the way it did, and it can't be anything other.
Yeah,
I'm butchering it, but it's like
everything happened exactly how it was supposed to, because that's how it happened.
Exactly.
Yes. There's no changing the past in the sense of like, stop beating yourself up over the things that happened in the past.
Yes.
If you want to retell that story to yourself in a way that empowers you, do it.
Yes.
But don't expect anybody else to change their view of the past, or don't wish things had been different.
Yes, because it
wasn't.
Just
be different. Even though you learned that lesson, leave it there.
Yes.
There's a reason that people, shed their skin in the same way like snakes do. Like we shed cells constantly, hundreds of thousands of millions of cells a day, because they're no longer serving us. And then we just grow new ones. You don't need to carry around all your dead cells. You don't need to have years and years and years of like dead skin. It just like sloughs away.
Yes.
So just move on. Just let the past, let the past be the past.
Yeah.
Like Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. Just believe it. It's not. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like the past it's over.
Yeah.
And just be right now. Right now is the only thing that exists.
Yes. Exactly.
So focus on that.
Yeah. And also for people who are like, well, I don't want to change. I like my life. That's also amazing. Great. Like we didn't like our lives. Like this is a person we knew we had so much more, like deep down, we knew we had so much more potential. So we wanted to change. We wanted to change the narrative. We like to do things outside of the box. We are very different. I think the universe has brought us together to show each other our capabilities, and then also show the world that, you don't have to do what you're told. You don't have to fit into boxes. You don't have to be what everybody else is telling you to be. Like, go your own path. Yeah. Do your own thing. Be the leaders, be the true, authentic, limitless potential beings that, God has seated us with, the universe has seated us with, the divine source creator has seated us with. And I think that that's so beautiful that we're embracing this in a very different way than a lot of people would. But again, we're just planting that seed. If you are struggling whether it be with a job or a family or not, what not to do in life next, you have limitless potential. Yeah. You can literally do anything you want, and it's never too late.
Yeah.
I think about this all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, we're in our 30s. But it's like, age is just a number. I said this on the podcast. I just had a birthday a couple months ago. I literally don't even know how old I am. I feel like I'm really just like coming out of my school years. Like, I don't know what happened from like high school to now, but it's like I'm relearning everything in life, and it's so beautiful. And I'm not considering myself a victim anymore. If anything, it's like, this is the most empowered I've ever felt in my life. And I've shed that victim mentality. Like I said, I'm not blaming anyone anymore. It's like, I have the power to recreate my life, and I'm doing it one step at a time. It's that building the momentum. It's not happening overnight, but each and every day I uncover something new and something different, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like thinking of like identity, where like we identify ourselves so much with what we have around us and where we are in the world. And this, I just want to bring it back to like kind of where we started in the beginning. So when you look around at your world and you have your job and your home and whatever, like maybe you have a lot of debt, maybe you have, some extra belly fat you want to get rid of. Maybe you just don't feel
good at your job.
Yeah. Or you don't feel like you don't love yourself. Like, I've been there. It's terrible. But you can change that. Like if you got a new job, like if you identify like, okay, you're a plumber and you're like, I don't want to be a plumber anymore. I'm going to become a carpenter. Yeah, now you're a carpenter. So you're no longer a plumber. That's just a part. Like if you might identify as what you do, but that's not who you are. In the same way, like I'm wearing a white shirt. Okay, like later I'm going to take off my white shirt and I'm going to wear a different shirt. I'm not the guy in the white shirt. I'm just me, whatever shirt I'm wearing, whatever job I have, wherever I live. We've lived in a lot of different cities, and a lot of different places. I'm not Dan, the guy from Boston, or Dan who lives in San Francisco, or I'm just Dan wherever he goes. I could very easily go downtown and change my name. That doesn't matter either. Like none of these things are who you are.
Yeah. And when you release the attachment to them, that's where the potential is.
Yeah, because you can't get a new job or a new shirt or a new place to live if you're still wearing the old one.
That is exactly right.